February 7th, 1904, Volume 6. How difficult it is to find a soul who gives all of herself to God, so that God may give all of himself to her. I spent the whole last month in much suffering, therefore I omitted writing. And as I continue to feel very weak and in suffering, very often a fear comes to me that it isn't that I cannot write, but that I do not want to, and as an excuse I say that I cannot. Indeed, it is true that I feel great repugnance, and I must make a great effort to write, and only obedience could conquer me. So in order to remove any doubt, I decided to write, not everything, but only a few words that I remember, to see whether I truly can or cannot. I remember that one day, as I was feeling ill, he told me, "My daughter, what will happen if the music ceases in the world?" And I, "Lord, what music should cease?" And he added, "My beloved, your music. In fact, when the soul suffers for me, prays, repairs, praises, thanks continually, this is continuous music to my hearing, which takes me away from hearing the iniquity of the earth, and therefore from chastising as appropriate. Not only this, but it is music in the human minds, and it diverts them from doing worse things. So if I take you, would the music not cease? For me it is nothing, because it would be nothing other than transporting it from the earth to heaven, and instead of having it from the earth, I would have it in heaven. But how shall the world go on?" Then I was thinking to myself, these are the usual pretexts so as not to take me. There are so many good souls in the world who do so much for God, and among all of them I perhaps occupy but the last place, and yet he says that if he takes me the music would cease. There are so many who do it better for him. While I was thinking of this, he came like a flash and added, "My daughter, what you say is true, that there are many good souls who do much for me. But how difficult it is to find one who gives me everything, so that I may give all of myself. Some retain a little bit of love of self, some self-esteem, some one affection, be it even for holy people, some a little vanity, some retain a little bit of attachment to the earth, some to interest. In some a little thing, some another, all keep something of their own, and this impedes that everything be divine in them. So since what comes from them is not fully divine, their music will not be able to produce those effects to my hearing and to the human minds. Therefore, their much doing will not be able to produce those effects, nor please me as much as the little doing of one who keeps nothing for herself, and who gives herself completely to me." February 7th, 1908, Volume 8. Life is a weight that will turn into a treasure. Continuing in my usual state, I was thinking about the enormous weight that blessed Jesus felt in carrying the cross, and I said to myself, "Lord, life too is a weight, but what a weight, especially because you, my highest good, are far away." At that moment he came and told me, "My daughter, it is true that life is a weight, but when this weight is carried with me, and one finds out that at the end of his life he can unload this weight within me, he will find this weight changed into a treasure, in which he will find gems, precious stones, diamonds, and all riches, such as to make him happy for eternity." February 7th, 1926, Volume 18. The divine will reigning in the soul raises her above everything, and loving with the love of a God, she can love all things with his very love, and is constituted possessor and queen of all creation. I was fusing myself in the holy divine volition according to my usual way, and taking the eternal I love you of my sweet Jesus, and making it my own, I was going around throughout the whole creation in order to impress upon each thing, so that everything and everyone might have one single note, one single sound, one single harmony. I love you, I love you, I love you, for myself and for all, toward my Creator, who so much loved me. Now, while I was doing this, my lovable Jesus came out from within my interior, and pressing me to his heart, all tenderness told me, "My daughter, how beautiful is the I love you of one who lives in my will. I hear the echo of mine together with hers over all created things. Therefore I feel the requital of love of the creature for everything I have done. And then, to love means to possess what one loves, or wanting to possess that which is loved. So you love the whole creation because it is mine, and I let you love it because I want to make it yours. Your repeated I love you for me upon each created thing is the way and the right of possession, the right to possess them. In feeling loved, all creation recognizes their master, and therefore they make feast in hearing your I love you being repeated upon them. Love makes one recognize what is one's own, and they give themselves only to those by whom they are loved. And my will reigning in the soul is the confirmation that what is mine is hers. Now, when something is in common between two persons, highest accord is needed. One cannot do without the other, and here is the necessity of their inseparable union, of continuous communications on what to do with what they possess. Oh, how my will reigning in the soul raises her above everything, and loving with the love of a God, she can love all things with his very love, and is constituted possessor and queen of all creation. My daughter, it is in this happy state that I created man. My will was to make up for all that was lacking in him, and to raise him to the likeness of his Creator. And this is precisely my aim upon you, to make you return to the origin as we created man. Therefore I do not want division between me and you, nor that what is mine be not yours. But in order to give you your rights, I want to recognize what is mine, so that as you love everything, and your I love you flows over all things, all of creation may recognize you. They will feel in you the echo of the beginning of the creation of man, and delighting in it, they will yearn to be possessed by you. I act for you like a king who is despised by his peoples, offended, forgotten. These peoples are no longer under the regime of the laws of the king, and if they observe any of the laws, it is force that imposes itself on them, not love. So the poor king is forced to live in his royal palace, isolated, without the love, the subjection, and the submission of the peoples to his will. But among many, he notices that there is one alone who maintains himself whole in letting himself be subdued entirely and completely by the will of the king. Even more, he repairs. He cries for the rebellious wills of the whole people, and would want to compensate the king by making himself act for each creature, so that he might find in him everything that he should find in all the rest of the people. The king feels drawn to love this one, and keeps him always under his eyes to see whether he is constant, and not for one day, but for a period of his life, because only constancy is what the king can rely upon, so as to be sure of what he wants to make of the creature. To sacrifice oneself, to do good for one day, is something easy for the creature. But to sacrifice oneself and do good for one's own life, oh, how difficult it is. And if it happens, it is a divine virtue operating in the creature. So when the king feels sure about him, he calls him to himself into his royal palace. He gives to him all that he should give to the whole people, and putting the others aside, he makes the new generation of his chosen people come out from this one, which will have no other ambition than to live of the will of the king alone, all submitted to him, like many birds from his womb. Don't you think, my daughter, that this is precisely what I am doing for you? My continuous calling you into my will, so that not yours but mine may live in you. My wanting from you that you let me find the note of your I love you, of your adoration for your Creator, of your reparation for each offense, upon all created things, and from the first to the last man that will come. Does this not say in clear notes that I want everything, in order to give you everything, and that raising you above everything, I want my will to be restored in you, whole, beautiful, triumphant, just as it came out of us in the beginning of creation? My will was the prime act of the creature. The creature had her prime act in my will, and therefore it wants to do its course of life in her. And even though it was suffocated at its first arising in the creature, it was not extinguished, and therefore it awaits its field of life in her. Don't you want to be its first little field? Therefore be attentive. When you want something, never do it on your own, but pray to me that my will may do it in you. In fact, that same thing, if you do it yourself, sounds bad, gives of human. But if my will does it, it sounds good. It harmonizes with heaven. It is sustained by a divine grace and power. It is the Creator that operates in the creature. Its fragrance is divine, and rising everywhere, it embraces everyone with one single embrace, in such a way that all feel the good of the operating of the Creator in the creature. February 7th, 1938, Volume 35. How God does not love force, but spontaneity. Display of magnificence, splendor, and sumptuousness that the divine volition will do in those who live in it. How creation is not finished. I am under the empire of the divine volition. Its creative virtue has such strength that it makes its sweet empire felt over the poor creature who, sweetly, not feeling forced, agrees with the Fiat, giving it full freedom to do whatever it wants. She even says, "How honored I feel that you want to make a portent out of my being, to the extent that you want to use your creative and operative strength inside my poor soul." But as my mind was immersed in receiving the creative virtue of the divine Fiat, my always adorable Jesus, surprising me with his short little visit, with unspeakable love told me, "Daughter of my will, how beautiful my Fiat is when it operates with its creative virtue. You have seen that it doesn't use violence, but sweetness, but an irresistible sweetness, maybe more than violence itself. With its sweetness, it embalms the creature, making her feel the beauty of the divine, so that she herself says, 'Hurry up, Holy Will, don't delay any longer. I languish if I don't see you operating in me with your creative virtue.' My daughter, we have never liked forced things or a forced will. Actually, we don't even want these things. They are very human and do not fit with our love and with our works. All is spontaneity and fullness of will. We want a good, we long for it, and we do it. and we do it with such fullness of love and grace that nobody can match us, to the extent that if we don't see spontaneity and the willingness to receive the good that we want to do in the creature, we don't do anything. At the most we wait, letting her hear our sighs, our anxiety, but we don't move to operate, not before we see her disposed with love to receive the work of her Creator. You must know that the life of our will keeps growing in the creature for every act she does in it, and when she reaches the fullness in which everything is my will within her, we start displaying our love and our graces, so that every instant we give her new love and new surprising graces. We show our divine pomp, as well as the magnificence and splendor of our stratagems of love. All that we do to her carries the mark of the bounty of her Creator. When the soul is filled with our divine volition, we don't hold anything back. What we have, we give, and whatever she wants is hers. The opulence we apply is such that we make one note of our divine melodies flow for each one of her acts, so that not even our music may be lacking within her. And she often plays to us beautiful little sonatas from our divine notes. Oh, how delighted we feel in the harmonies of our melodies and divine sounds. You must know that for the soul who lives in our will, we surpass the opulence, the pomp, the magnificence and sumptuousness that we used in the creation. All was abundance, abundance of light that cannot be measured, extension of heaven, opulent with beauties and adorned by many stars. Each thing was created with such abundance, invested with such splendor of opulence, that nobody could ever need anything else. Rather, every one can give, without the need to receive. Only the human will puts limits and constraints on the creature, throwing her into the miseries, and preventing her from receiving my goods. Therefore I anxiously await that my will may be known, and that the creatures may live in it. Then I will show off so much opulence that every soul will be like a new creation, beautiful, but distinct from all the others. I will amuse myself. I will be her insuperable architect. I will display all my creative art. Oh, how I long for this! How I want it! How I yearn for it! Creation is not finished. I have yet to do my most beautiful works. Therefore, my daughter, let me work. And do you know when I work? When I manifest to you a truth on my divine will. I immediately become the architect, and I work in you with my creative hands, so that that truth may become life within your soul. Oh, how I enjoy myself in this work! The soul becomes like soft wax in my hand, being shaped into the life that I want. Therefore be attentive, and let me do. End of February 7th. Fiat.